Hey guys, so this washing machine is about, I guess, nine years old now. And as of a few months ago, nearly a year, it started to shake a little bit, and when it started to spin. And well, we thought initially we were putting in too many jeans or too heavy of a blanket or something like that. And well, it started to get worse and worse. So eventually I figured that the dampers are not working too well anymore. So what I did was I initially asked around to see whether I could buy the dampers online or something. They are not available online, but I contacted Electrolux, and this is Electrolux Malaysia, and I'm surprised. From the time that I had my previous machine and I had problem with that, at that point in time their service was honestly quite rubbish. But this time around I just sent them a query, said, hey, I've got this machine, model number so and so, and I want to buy the dampers. And within a day they actually sent me a general arrangement drawing, say this is the damper you need. And then I thought, since I'm changing the dampers, why don't I just change the springs as well? So this machine has two springs, one here and one here, which suspends the whole assembly. See that? These are your concrete damping weights, well, mass weights. And the other spring is over there, hangs down there. And so they said you need two springs and two dampers, and I think all in it was like 180 ringgit, and I think I had to pay maybe $5 or $10 in shipping, and they actually courier it to an address of your choice. So that's fantastic too. So all I had to do was email them, give them an address, transfer the money online to them, and they sent it to me. And these are what they look like. So this is a new damper. Got two of them, one, two. I've got two springs, and it's good that the spring even comes with the liner plastic. Where is that? Feel that. Yeah. So got two springs and two dampers, and honestly speaking, they sent it to me within a week, and I've been sitting on it for probably 2 months now. So today I figured, well, gotta get down to opening it up, and I've already opened it up now, as you can see, and I thought I really had to make a video of this because when I was looking for resources online, I did not find anything particular to this. So when I'm putting it back together, I'll walk you through the opening steps of it. But basically, you've got two screws here for the back panel, which is sitting over there, and you've got two screws here. You have one screw on the side, which is hidden behind a plug, one screw on each side, and I think, yeah, one screw on each side, one here and one here. You basically pull the panel out. Before you pull the panel out, the wire is crimped with an anchor block here, so the anchor block needs to be removed. I'll show you that later. And this thing sits in the back panel. You can see there's two clips here, like that. So basically you just put your finger down and press it in and lift up one side at a time and remove that. So then you're done. Then you come to the point where you have it like this, and oh shoot, water's leaking. I'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So noob tip, because none of my tips are pro tips because I'm not a professional, but this hose is your drain hose, and all front load machines work on a siphon effect. So this part is always full of water, so always drain it down into the bathroom like I've done. Just now the hose kind of got flat, and whatever was left was dripping onto the ground. So that's that. So back to the machine. When I opened it up, I basically started looking. I was like, so that's one of the dampers. That's okay. Looks a little bit oily over there. Maybe it's not in good condition. And then I got to here, and this is what I saw. It's anchored well enough up here, but this pin was literally just sitting on the ground there. So it was only damped on one side. So every time it starts to spin, where you get a heavy load, it'll shake all over the place. So basically it was a semi-damped system hanging on two springs, and of course it would jump all over the place. And it's at this point that I said, hey, I've got to make this video, because who expects a pin to come out, right? Because if you look at this, oh shoot, I just lost a pin. Where'd it go? Ah, there it is. It has these protrusions which are supposed to latch onto the hole, which apparently are not doing a very good job. So anyway, I'll get to changing the dampers and I'll bring you back from time to time. So basically, I'm just guessing you have to, right. Okay, I think I saw a tip. Let me get the things and I'll show you. Okay, so we're back. And while searching for resources to my problem, I came across this example. So basically, to remove this, I can't now because this is retaining it, right? So basically you get a socket. In this case it's a number 13 M13 socket, metric, and you just use that to push in on the retainer piece, and that pushes it in, and the theory is you should be able to retract it after that. So I'm going to try that now and let y'all know how that works out. So the idea is to get this on the opposite side, which there, in this case, there is something, so I will not be able to do that. Let's try it on this side. Alright, this also has something here. So for this one it may work, the top one. Okay, so as I was talking about that just now, basically the instruction online was to take one of these things and press it in, right? So based on the limitation of the construction of this machine, with all these obstructions here, I am unable to do so. So what I did was I rotated it around until I could feel the tab here. Just depress it with your finger and pull out with your tug on this side while twisting with the other hand, and it comes out quite well. So that's that. And so this is your use damper. You can move it in and out quite easily. And this is actually all it is inside. It's some sort of foam running with some grease inside a plastic cylinder. So conceivably you could repair this if this damper gives way, which would only be this foam giving way. So in reality, the only time that we would need to replace it is if these rubber bushes gave way, which if we could buy the parts we could replace it. But if we can zoom in here a little bit, they are starting to crack, but by no means have they failed. So yeah, the plastic structure is robust enough in itself, and so since I have the new dampers and I've already got the machine open, I'm going to change them anyway. I tried pulling out the new damper and it feels exactly the same as this, so I will put this up on one of these. We have this thing called Bully Nothing, which means buy nothing. It's a place where we swap components with people who need it. It's basically giving stuff away free to be reused. I'll put them all up for someone who really has a busted damper. Alright, I'm going to install the new damper now and see what comes of it. Well, okay, so that's one damper in, and basically what I did was, this is what the original install system was, and it's basically an open cup facing upwards. I do not know why they would do that, because that eye at the bottom are identical and interchangeable. So what I did on this side was I put it inverted to what it was originally, so even if anything falls, it cannot fall into the opening there, basically everything just falls downwards. I don't think there is any detrimental effects to this swap, and if I'm wrong, well, it's my bad, but I think this would be a more logical way. And to get, you can put your full body weight against it to push it, but that one has to be installed from the back. So basically what I had to do was in the end it took me about 15 minutes to figure this out, was put two hands and use my fingers as a double cantilever and to press it in that way, and with that position I managed to get it in. Now this is the control box for this machine. So if you are trying to salvage parts, this is what you're after. There's just a clip here, which you press to pull it up, and that's it. So my in-laws were using the same machine and theirs died for some reason. I think it was the rubber seal or something that tore, and it wasn't cost efficient to repair. So what I did was I took that board there, which is at this point in time just a controller, because my previous machine that was a control board, so I thought I was salvaging the control board. And then the scrappers came and took the machine. What I was really after was this, which I didn't know was down here. So if my controller ever goes bust, I don't have a spare controller. But anyway, if you want to salvage it, it's not too bad. Taking off the back takes about 5 minutes or 10 minutes maybe. Yep, so that's the controller. One damper down, one to go. And then it'll be the springs. I haven't really figured out how to change the springs yet, because basically this is what's supporting the entire assembly. Well, onwards. Okay, so this one took the better part of half an hour. One at the bottom here is really tight, and eventually what I had to do was just use a really large socket, get to the back of it, hold this with both hands and really just pull it in. So I was basically lying flat on the floor with both hands shoved into that small space there, gripping this and pulling it in. Nick my hand a little bit. So guys, wear gloves. Now it's time to move on to the springs, suspension, and I'll need a few minutes to figure this out. Okay, so to change the springs, this is the setup I came up with. Basically, the springs support the drum on either side, and when you remove the suspension, the drum will basically fall. So as I'm doing it alone now, I need a way to independently suspend the drum while I work on the springs. And there is some sort of a hole here, and this is just a furniture screw which I had on the shelf somewhere in my storeroom. It fits in perfectly. I've put it in. This is a plain 2x2. Just wedged it against the wall here, and so this basically holds up the drum. The next thing I did was get a bit of, this is basically some nylon rope from a paper bag, and I treadled it through here, and I used that to lift the spring up, because this spring is in tension. This is what the spring is in resting state, and that's how much it is when it is installed. So it is undergoing quite a bit of tension, and it takes quite a bit of force to pull it apart. So I'll treadle the string through, and then I'll show you all how I get it done. Just a note, these springs are basically identical left and right, so they are not mirror images of each other. So this will hook in this way because the hook has to go on this side, and that will hook in that way because the hook has to be on that side. So the hook, one will face backwards, the bottom hook, and one bottom hook will face forwards, and that is seen here. This one is facing forwards and this one is facing backwards. So this is the spring that I have already installed. It's a new one. I was basically just test running my theory. I had no idea whether it would work or not, but okay, it worked. So now I'll show you guys how I do the second one. So basically you treadle it through the springs loop, and what I do is I do a double twist knot. If you do something like just a regular knot or a regular reef knot, this thing becomes too tight when you try to take it apart. So I find this easier. So now you just hold this, position yourself just out the entire washing machine lifted. Okay, so then drop it into the hole. Okay. And over here you basically just unhook it from the hole. This one, make sure the hook is in the right direction. So then you basically just hook this through the hole, face it up, make sure this, can you see the gap in the plastic? That's not proper. It has to be in line with the metal, so you got to push it back a tiny bit. If this happens, what you're looking for is that. Now loop the nylon rope through the top hook over there and treadle it through the hole in the steel up there and pull it up and hook it on. So now we've got a nylon rope through. Basically pull and drop it into position. So this is where being able to undo the knot without too much difficulty comes in handy, which is why I like to use a double twist. It creates a larger base space here. Now basically pull it out and you're done. Don't use a rope that you want to keep and is good, because this looks like Electrolux uses some kind of greaser, so your rope is going to be greasy by the time you're done and you're probably going to discard it. So this is the spring that has been removed. It still looks good, but I figured that if I'm going to take the trouble to take apart the machine and change the dampers, I might as well change the springs as well. They are almost 10 years old. They've gone through a decent amount of fatigue cycles. But as you can see, the plastic is still in good condition. Nothing really to speak about. Okay, down here is some damage, but no, actually nothing significant. So I'll say the springs are in still really good condition. I'll put them up together with the dampers for anybody who needs them. Alright, so now we're gonna put the machine back together. And basically to remove this wood, basically just lean the machine. Okay. To remove this wood, basically just lean the machine forward, lift it up, and that's it. I'm going to get rid of this screw and start putting things back together. So this is the back panel of the machine. There really is nothing to it, just a simple plate. In the old days you could remove this section because the belts were less reliable back then, and we'd have to change the belt every, I don't know, 2 to 3 years. The belt on this one is still good, so we'll get this back into position. So the first thing you're going to do is get the plug through and get all the wire out. So that's coming from there, and we'll just maneuver this. So next you slide it in. It goes underneath here and here, and you can just tap it into place. Make sure there's no cable getting caught or hole should be about there. This one just clips in here and here. So this one just basically clips in like that. You line up this one and this one here and just like pop it in. To remove it, basically you just put your finger inside there and press in, and it should come out. But anyway, doing it with one hand is a little bit difficult. So basically just pop it out here and pop it out here and it comes out. So as I'm terrible at remembering what screw goes where, I generally always do this. Just piece of cardboard, poke it through, write down what was what. And that should sort it out. And as you can see, there really is not many screws to talk about here. And now we'll get back to it. So the first thing we'll do is replace the top bracket screws. There's 4 of them. Whenever you are installing a screw that has been threaded before, always unscrew it until you hear drop it back in. And that means it's fallen back into its previous thread. And then if you turn backwards and you hear a sound and then you start to tighten and it feels tight, do it again, because you do not want to be cutting new threads into sheet metal. That's when you start to spin out screws and you can't tighten up anymore. You just basically have a oversized metal hole. And when working with sheet metal, just a tiny bit of tightness is all that you're going for. Too much will just pop out. Right. Next, we will replace the cable back panel. It comes in 2 pieces, which allows you to remove it and, as you saw just now, treadle the plug through the hole. So try to replicate the king position. Put it back together in 2 halves. Try to put it in here. Push it in and go and look for the screw. Okay, so now that the screw has been replaced, cable is tight. There are 2 screws, one on each side, that are inside. Can you see that in there? Behind a plastic plug, which looks like this. So all I did was put in a small Allen key inside and through a center hole and just pulled it out. It's not held in by much, just very lightly clipped in. So you're gonna put these 2 screws in and then install the plugs. Okay, now the screws in. Just pop the cover in. That's all it looks like from the outside. Now there's 2 more screws, one here, one at the bottom, and then we'll replace the cover. So all the cover is a latch-in system. It has little tabs here which line up with these holes, and then you screw in from here into these holes. And in the front, I believe it's these little tabs that latch into the front, and that's it. Okay, so just now I mentioned there were 2 screws in the drawer, which were this one and that one. In hindsight, I didn't need to remove them at all. So all I have to do is just place this on here and just push it in, and after I push it in, just get these 2 screws in and tighten them up, after which the machine should be good to go. Reconnect your water supply, get your drain hose back in the drain pipe, and that's it. Oh, and the drain hose is held together with this. Okay, one thing I need to highlight. This is the only screw during this exercise which is a Torx, and that's the star-shaped kind of screw. And this one uses and this is basically a T20 Torx. So yeah, just get a set like this. These are not very expensive, and nowadays more and more people are starting to use Torx screws, so I guess it's useful to have. So now I'll put the machine back into position and we'll try a wash. And now this is the machine spinning, absolutely not walking, very stable. So it was definitely the loose damper that was giving me the problem. I really don't know if the loose damper had softened the springs, because the springs were under a lot more load since it was jumping around a lot. But yeah, now it's spinning at 650. I've even tried it running at 850 RPM because this machine has 3 settings, 500, 650 and 850. But even at 850 on a heavy load with jeans and stuff like that, it doesn't move. And so yeah, that is it, and we're good to go. So if your machine ever starts jumping around and shifting during spin cycles, get a spring and damper set from your OEM, whoever the brand, whatever the brand may be, and it should sort you out. Before this, the machine would have already been somewhere in this area by now. Right guys, that's all for this video. Hope it was a little bit informative to you, showed you what's inside the machine, gave you an idea of what it takes to change out the springs and dampers. Give it a try, there's really no harm, it costs a fraction of the cost of a new machine. Cheers.